We're gonna show you something, but you have to promise not to get mad. Ready? Alright, here it is.
Oh, Your Highness, I'm sure it's not that noticeable.
Yeah, okay, maybe it is that bad. Have you ever wanted to end a man's life over cardboard? If you've ever sat across from one of these, then we know that you have. While this kind of playstyle has no place in a casual format like Commander, a question we see all too often is, what is Stax? So allow us to break it down into its smallest pieces before regurgitating those pieces back into your mouths for sustenance. Today we're talking about Magic's most competitive but least enjoyed deck. If you enjoy the video like we know you will, subscribe and consider supporting us on Patreon. The name originally comes from a vintage deck known as the $4,000 Solution. The predominantly artifact deck played around the symmetrical nature of dampening effects through their highly synergistic artifact strategies. This mostly means they utilize lands that tap for more than 1 mana, namely Mishra's Workshop, which taps for 3 mana, but the mana can only be used to cast artifact spells. This was the plan to avoid being as limited on mana as their opponent was, which is why every Mox and even Black Lotus were key pieces in this. The name Stax was also a nod to the card Smokestack. This 4-mana artifact gets a soot counter at the beginning of each of your upkeeps, and then forces each player to sacrifice a permanent equal to the number of soot counters on Smokestack at the beginning of each of their upkeeps. Along with Lodestone Golem, Tanglewire, and Steel Hellkite, the way the deck achieved victory was through the combination of raising the cost of spells, tapping down lands, and rushing in a colorless Fire Breather with Mishra's Workshop. This initial strategy was very effective, and Stax has been ever since seen as a powerful deck. The mana cost raising effects seen in Lodestone Golem, Sphere of Resistance, and Thorn of Amethyst would go on to be named tax effects, due to their adding a price where there originally wasn't one, and their tendency to increase out of control. Taxes in Magic are additional costs added to an effect or spell by an external force. Like the Commander tax, which adds 2 colorless mana to your commander's mana cost for each time it's been sent to the command zone. The Legacy deck, Death and Taxes, is famous for popularizing the name and strategy of tax cards. The deck's main goal is resource denial paired with taxation to make the opponent unable to defend against low-cost creatures wielding powerful equipment. While some dedicate themselves to the theme, running Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, and Rishadan Port to artificially increase demand and systematically destroy supply, there were others who took to flickering Mangara and exiling every creature the opponent resolved. If you want to know how this works specifically, let us know, but we aren't talking about that right now. While the $4,000 Solution won through artifact creatures, Death and Taxes runs the Swords of Fire and Ice and of Light and Shadow, as well as Umezawa's Jite, which allow them a clear line to victory through the many added abilities and the spectrum of protection they offer. This serves as the reason the deck is not just named Taxes. Often compared to Stax cards and closely related to them, Prison Effects are spells that limit your opponent's options so much that they might as well outright remove them. Cards like Tanglewire force your opponent to choose something to tap down, while Winter Orb keeps things tapped for longer, effectively trapping players inside of their own turns, where the only action they can take is to draw, untap 1 permanent, discard down to 7, and pass. It makes your opponents feel like they're in a cell, interlinked. In a previous video, that you should totally go watch after this one, we discussed hate cards, which are spells that prohibit, prevent, or destroy some type of specific card. While hate cards can be used to stop players from drawing, creature abilities from triggering, lands from tapping for colored mana, and even punish life gain, they and prison spells differ in one significant way. That being, hate spells add rules to the game while they're in play, while prison spells seek to decelerate their opponent, to a complete stop if that's possible. These decks lean more into the tapping down permanent side of Stax, but still utilize taxation through what are playfully called Pillow Fort cards, which tax players for attacking you with creatures. We should have called them Ivory Towers, but the effects don't really line up that well. Now you know that a Stax deck isn't just any control deck that uses artifacts, nor is it any deck that just hates out a particular strategy. Stax is very specifically a style of control deck that aims to limit your opponent's options to the point of rendering their turns inert. Compare it to something like Pillow Fort, which is a control deck that doesn't want to be interacted with, and you'll see that Stax doesn't just impede their opponent's ability to play, but it cuts it off outright. We hope this distinction has helped. Let us know how much you hate Stax in the comments, and we're on the road to 500 subs, so subscribe. We've been Rude Kaiser, the realest ruler of the realm, reminding you that if you play this kind of deck in anything but a hyper-competitive environment, then you are scum and we wish you a mild toothache. See you all next time, and there will be a next time.